He's finally back to kick some tail.
His coconut gun can fire in spurts. If he shoots ya,
It's gonna hurt.
he's DK.
Donkey Kong. DK. Donkey Kong is here. He's DK. Donkey Kong. DK. Donkey Kong is here.
Hey, it's Critical Art 64. This is Caesar here with a design breakdown and commentary on Donkey Kong Country. Shouts out to user Sue Donim, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, for suggesting the topic, which really lets you guys know that you are on the ground floor with me. If you have any suggestions, I will respond. Now, I was hesitant to do an episode on Donkey Kong initially because cartooning animals was never really my strong suit. I never really played any Donkey Kong games until I saw this particular quote from the creator of Donkey Kong, the daddy of Nintendo himself, Shigeru Miyamoto, and basically saying that people will accept mediocre gameplay, or rather, he said that Donkey Kong Country shows that people will accept mediocre gameplay if the art itself is good. Now, those are his words, not mine. Upon studying this, I learned that Donkey Kong Country is one of the most revered video game trilogies of all time. My first experience with Donkey Kong, unfortunately, was through a Chinese or Mexican knockoff. It was one of those fake handheld Game Boy type games that one of your aunts or maybe an estranged family member would get you for your birthday or Christmas. It might have been something called like Dinky King or Dinky King or like Conky Dong. I don't know. The second experience I had was through that fever dream of a TV show. I think it was a French show initially, Donkey Kong Country, but I don't want to talk about that. I think I repressed that one. I never personally owned a Nintendo, but my first console was a Sega. Then I eventually got sucked into PlayStation since I was always a fighting game fan. But I remember Donkey Kong 64 since one of the cool kids in my neighborhood had it. But since I was the youngest kid in the neighborhood, I was about 9 years old. The other cool kids were like 12. They only ever let me pick Linky Kong, and I had to use the N64 controller with the flaccid analog stick. I don't know if you remember those controllers, but if you use them a lot, the stick would get all floppy. I always hated those controllers. They're kind of like the Total Recall hooker of controllers. But I digressed. Being an avid fighting game fan, what I really know Donkey Kong from is the Super Smash Bros. Melee game, which in my opinion is one of the greatest fighting games of all time. There, Donkey Kong is kind of a slow, mid-level character, so I never really picked him up. I heard in the later games Diddy Kong is kind of a beast in that. So art-wise, my first thought was to maybe go a more realistic route, but as you can tell by this Photoshop I did of this like photogenic gorilla, you lose some of the magic that way. The thing about Donkey Kong Country is that even when it was a 2D game, Rare Studios, the company that developed Donkey Kong as we know him, would render the characters and animations in 3D, and then they would digitize them into 2D sprites so that the 16-bit Super Nintendo could handle it. Donkey Kong, is designed and optimized to be a 3D character, so drawing him in 2D is kind of like rendering the Looney Tunes in 3D. It can be done, but it requires, design fundamentals, which is what 12-year-old me didn't know when I would have a real hard time drawing Donkey Kong. But after seeing this particular concept art of the Kremlings, or as I've heard them called, the Croc Suckers, I decided to go with this style, with the comic book style inking and the high contrast. So here's the first one. First, here's Donkey Kong, which Shigeru Miyamoto originally named Sotoborno Gorilla. Now, this Donkey Kong that we all know is technically the grandson of the OG Donkey Kong. As you can see here, most of the characters in the Donkey Kong Country game are roughly 3 heads tall. Donkey Kong here has the typical hero triangle shape that you'll see on characters like Johnny Bravo or Kronk from Emperor's New Groove. His little hair swoop here, another distinguishing factor. Jimmy Neutron totally stole his hairdo. If you're the leader of Kong Island, you get a red tie, very presidential. You know, what's funny is in the beta version of Donkey Kong 64, they used realistic guns, kind of as a stand-in. Then they eventually replaced it with this iconic coconut gun. Now, I've totally messed up the head here, so I had to redraw it. I had to use a little bit more references. I drew a fancy little island, Kong Island here. He got his Kong house, and there he is. Next up here is Donkey Kong's little buddy, my personal favorite, Diddy Kong. He kind of reminds me of a more refined version of an Ape Escape chimp, although since you can see here he does have a tail, he's not a chimp. It's been said he's kind of a spider monkey. I guess Kong, some people say it's a species, some people say it's a family name. They say he's technically Donkey Kong's nephew, but I kind of see Kong as more of like a clan name. I like that he dual wields peanut guns. He guns akimbo peanut guns, or they might call it shooting Macedonian style. I always liked that the Kongs understood the importance of responsible weapon ownership, which is demonstrated here by Diddy's excellent trigger discipline. Now, anything Diddy is in, he's automatically tops, whether it's his top tier appearance in Mario Kart or Super Smash Ultimate. He has a real dominant appearance there, and I'm really quite partial to Hoodie Diddy Kong. I think that's one of the coolest versions of him. Another distinguishing factor of him is his voice, which I would describe as sounding kind of like Bruce Lee on Adderall. He does have a Nintendo hat. It's unclear, what Nintendo actually does in the DK world. Before Nintendo was a video game company, they had everything from playing cards to casinos and whorehouses. They were like kind of a Yakuza run company, which is interesting. Which is kind of how they got into video games. They used to make gambling machines, pachinko machines. So now here he is in the jungle habitat. Next up, we got Donkey Kong's main squeeze, Candy Kong. She's a little more humanoid shaped compared to the other Kongs, and she likes feet thumbs too. So she's not really like a gorilla or a chimp. She's kind of like a Bigfoot Sasquatch type of Kong. Sasquatch. She definitely reminds me of Crash Bandicoot's girlfriend, Tana Bandicoot. She follows the buxom blonde bombshell trope that was really big in the 90s due to things like Baywatch. Her first appearance was at the save screen in Donkey Kong Country. One thing I noticed was that the theme of her theme in Donkey Kong Country perfectly matches up with the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air's theme song, so I mashed them together.
In West Philadelphia, born and raised on the playground is where I spent most of my days. Chilling out, maxing, relaxing, all cool and all shooting some b-ball outside of
She's the only non-playable character on this list, but I think it's about time for her to have a playable role. One thing I do like about her, she has her own business. She's very entrepreneurial, like a lot of the other Kongs. It seems like about half of them all have businesses. Funky has a business, Cranky has a business. That's very industrious. I kind of went with a mix of her old design with her newer design, and here she is. Here's another fan favorite, Dixie Kong. Her first appearance was as Diddy's partner and girlfriend in Donkey Kong Country 2. As you can see, she doesn't have a tail, so she's actually listed here as a chimp. She has a prehensile ponytail, though, that she can actually manipulate. It's also kind of funny how if you've ever heard of Mugen, they repurpose her sprites, and they have her and Diddy Kong fighting zombies. That's kind of interesting. He was basically the star of the third Donkey Kong, because it was called Dixie's Double Trouble. But they made the promotional materials kind of look like Kiddy Kong was the hero, because this was back in 1996, when video games were mostly seen as kind of a boy's toy. So the marketers were kind of afraid that if the game starred a girl, that it would be seen as a girl's game. But this was 96, back right before Tomb Raider was dropped, and that kind of changed everything. There was another slight controversy with her name, Dixie, since the word Dixie kind of has connotations with the antebellum South, which is why, the group, the Dixie Chicks, are now just the Chicks. But I think it was more of that it's just a girl's name that starts with a D and ends in Y. I mean, some people are kind of ridiculous. They think that her name, since it's Dixie, she must be kind of like this. She also seems very fond of bubblegum, which is why they gave her a gumball pop gun here. Next up, we have Funky Kong, who is also a gorilla like Donkey Kong. He's kind of like the 90s Totally Awesome Dude version. He's kind of dressed like the B-boy in the Chief Rocka Lords of the Underground hip-hop music video. Here I gave him the boot bazooka, like the one he had in Donkey Kong 64. The only thing that is kind of messed up is that he is like way more powerful than Donkey Kong. Like in Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, he has infinite power rolls, infinite swim drills, and his surfboard blocks spikes. So he's completely OP. He's totally easy mode version, but he never does anything in the story. As a matter of fact, in Donkey Kong Country 3, he, for some reason, has Kiddy Kong with him, and he pawns him off on Dixie Kong, and then tells her to go and save Diddy Kong and Donkey Kong. I mean, why is he going to send a young girl and a baby to try to save Donkey Kong when he himself is more powerful than Donkey Kong? I mean, what an asshole. Next up is the totally underrated Chunky Kong. Allegedly, he's a baboon. I don't really see it. Here he is using his pineapple bazooka, and with his vest and hat combo, I'm getting really strong Jim Varney, Ernest Goes to Camp vibes. I like that they make memes of him doing PSAs. That's kind of funny. He's a little bit of a chicken. He's the strong character, but I know when you try to pick him in DK64, he actually says like, "No, don't pick me." In 2001, Puff Daddy changed his name to P. Diddy, which is after Diddy Kong was created. So that leads me to believe if Biggie was still alive, he'd go by Chunky Smalls or maybe the notorious CHUNK. People kept saying Chunky was dead, and I thought that was in reference on how he doesn't really get any play these days, until I saw the Where Are They Now parody of the DK rap, and then it all made sense.
And then there's Chunky. He's dead.
But yeah, totally underrated design. I would like to see him in some new games. Now for everyone's least favorite Kong, Kiddy Kong. He's like a grotesque little goblin. He gives me strong troll doll vibes. He's only in the game Donkey Kong Country 3. I did a quick drawing of how he would look if he was actually likable in any kind of way. His only good skill is that he was able to chuck Dixie like really far, but other than that, he was a liability in that game. Other than that, also his cries were really blood curdling, and this is one of the few Donkey Kong designs that I don't like. Even Donkey Kong's dad, Donkey Kong Jr. is cuter, and he looks like a weird egg. I only drew him so I could say that I drew all the playable Kongs. Yeah, so not alone in that sentiment, but here he is. Next up is Tiny Kong, the big little sister to Dixie Kong. Initially, she was meant to be like a monkey, kind of like a Boo from Aladdin, like a little male marmoset, and instead they went with the the taller chimp. I think that was a good call. Now her name's kind of ironic since she's not the tiny one, but back in her old design in Donkey Kong 64, she was tiny, and then she also got like magical barrels from the mad scientist version of Cranky that allowed her to shrink, hence the name. But after the redesign in Diddy Kong Racing, she's now the tall one. The Dixie Kong Twitter tweet meme referencing, the puberty difference is pretty funny. I drew her here with her feather crossbow. Now I kind of wish they went with something like strawberry arrows, something along those lines. I think the feathers kind of break the food motif that all their weapons have. That kind of makes my design OCD twinge. When doing a deep dive on all the characters, I saw that the German Donkey Kong 64 site listed her occupation as a tax official. I mean, what the hell is wrong with the Germans, man? They're a bunch of filthy bureaucrats. Yeah, they're pretty out there. Anyways, definitely a fan favorite. Next up is Dinky Kong. He's a depraved rogue Manky Kong, which are kind of like a bunch of asshole orangutans in the game. One thing I noticed is that on all the really dopey characters, they are usually animated with 4 fingers instead of 5, kind of like an old school cartoon. I thought I'd keep that up. He also has a clown nose, which is, between that and his Slenderman arms, Dinky is like totally creepy.
Hi, Georgie. Aren't you going to say hello?
I drew him with his grape shooter. It's kind of like a little blowgun. I like that even the DK rap disses him. Definitely.
He has no style. He has no grace.
This Kong has a funny face.
Definitely a fun design to draw. He has a dumpy little body. I'd like to see him in more games. And finally, the double OG, triple OG, Cranky Kong. He's the original DK. The Mario in the original game was actually Mario's father, and he was a crooked contractor who had a f***ed-up zoo where he would make Cranky balance on barrels to amuse his homeboys, and then Cranky snapped and kidnapped his girl Pauline. So Mario eventually came to give, then eventually Mario came to give Donkey Kong an ass whooping. Eventually he gets away, with the help of his son Donkey Kong Jr., and they start Donkey Kong Island. He settles down with his wife Wrinkly Kong, who becomes kind of a teacher to everybody on the island. Now she's a ghost. He goes through a mad scientist phase. And I like that he's always complaining and breaking the fourth wall, usually referencing video games. I drew him to kind of look like The Simpsons' Old Man Yells at Cloud meme. He's definitely a classic. But that concludes all the playable Kongs. If you have any video suggestions, don't be shy, leave them in the comments down below. Now I'll play y'all out on a beat I made out of the Water Level song. Shouts out to David Wise, the composer. He does great work. But latest.